I've devised a scientifically proven system to help you figure out what job is right for you. It's based on real psychological research on what actually makes people stay in jobs and what actually keeps people emotionally satisfied in their jobs. So the way this works is I'm going to give you a system based on 5 core values: autonomy, pay, stability, variety, and alignment. Out of these 5 values, you're going to pick your top 2 values, which are the most important to you when looking for a job, and then you're going to pick one throwaway. So the throwaway is basically the value out of those 5 that you care the least about, or like you give the least of a shit about when you're looking for a job. Obviously, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about each value so that you can decide properly, and then afterwards, based on your unique combination, I'll tell you what career path is the best match for your priorities. Okay, so running through the 5 core values. Number 1, autonomy. Autonomy is how much freedom you have in the job. So like how, when, and where you work. So if autonomy is one of your top values, right, it means that you're someone that really hates being micromanaged. You probably don't like rigid schedules and you'd rather be left alone to work rather than have to explain anything to like a fucking supervisor. So basically, autonomy is for people that want full control over both your time and also your tasks. The second core value is pay. So obviously, pay, this is about money, right? But I need to explain to you specifically what I mean by pay in the context here. So pay here is not like maximizing the amount of money you make in your job. It's more about how your income matters to you compared to the other values on this list, okay? So I'll give you an example. It's not saying that like if you don't pick pay as one of your top values that you don't care about being fairly compensated for your work, right? Like that you'll work for pennies. Obviously, that's not the case, right? Because everyone wants to be paid enough to at least make rent, buy food, right? Like that's not what pay as like a top value is. What pay as your top value means is, are you the type of person who would choose a better paying job even if it was more boring or like less flexible or like less aligned with your identity? If that's you, then you might pick pay as one of your top values, right? Versus, are you the type of person who would take a lower paying job, which still pays you enough to pay your bills, but like a lower paying job that felt more meaningful, more creative, or gave you more freedom? If that's you, then pay is not one of your top values. Another thing to note if you picked pay is like if you're someone that really prioritizes financial security, or if you feel like anxious or resentful without financial security, then pay would be one of your top values. Okay, so the next value is stability. So stability is how consistent and predictable your job is. So for example, how long the contract is, what the benefits of the job are, whether you have like the opportunity to continue doing this job long term. So if you're someone that really values knowing what the next 6 months of your life looks like, or like the thought of like a project or gig-based job where after the project is done you have to find something else, if that thought of like looking for something else once this is done, if that makes you really anxious, then stability might be one of your top values. The next value is variety. So variety as your top value means how mentally stimulating your job is. So like how often things change, like how many different hats you get to wear at the job, okay? The variety of different tasks you get to do at the job. So if you're someone that gets bored really easily or you hate routine, then variety might be one of your top values. The next value is alignment. So alignment is how much your job matches your personal values, your identity, and your sense of purpose. So it might be like the mission of the job. They love using the word mission. Like the mission of like the role, or even like the company. Or if you're someone that's like, I can't stomach working for a company that sells things that I don't believe in or like I don't use. If like you actually care about this stuff, then alignment might be one of your top values. So those are the 5 different values, right? By the way, if you're doubting the claim I made at the beginning of the video, which is that this is based on actual research, I've linked all of the studies that I've looked at in the description below. Not cited properly, like no MLA format, because I'm not fucking 18 years old. I'm not in college. I don't need to do that shit. There's the name of the studies, the years of the studies. You can find the studies. It's all there. Look at that if you want to. Okay, so now that you know the 5 values, you're now going to pick 2 out of those 5 values, which are the most important to you when looking for a job, okay? By the way, these top 2, they're not ordered, right? So it's not like top 1 and then second choice. It's like 2 evenly given top priority values, if that makes sense. And then after you do that, right, after you pick 2, out of the 3 remaining values, pick out of those 3 the one value which is your least prioritized. So like the one that you give the least of a shit about in a job, that's gonna be your throwaway. I'll give you an example, right? So like if you really value long-term stability and also variety of tasks in your job, but you don't really care about like how autonomous my job is, like I don't really care if a supervisor is watching me, then your top 2 values would be stability and variety, and your throwaway would be autonomy. Do you get me? Okay, so now you should have a unique combination of like 3 different keywords, right? So depending on your combination, I'm gonna tell you the types of jobs you should get based on your unique combinations. I've given little names to each of the different types of archetypes of jobs that you should get. I'm gonna flash it on screen now. Pause the video, figure out where you are, and then go to like the section in the video where like your value is on screen. Okay, so now you should know which of the 10 archetypes you are. Now, some of you might have noticed on that table, you might have noticed that the archetypes are organized by your top 2 values, not the throwaway, right? So that's on purpose. Basically, your throwaway does matter in the sense that it kind of changes the flavor of your type, right? But the issue is, as you can see, there were 10 archetypes. If I try and explain all the different types of combinations of the top 2 values as well as the throwaway, if you can do the math here, right? 10 possible top 2 combinations times 3 possible throwaways each, right? Because the remaining 3 values, that's 30 different archetypes, and that is like logistically not possible for me to explain all in one video because the video would be like 5 hours long, and I want to be able to like get out a video for you guys every week. Basically, we're just gonna go over the 10 archetypes based on the top 2 different value combinations. Don't worry, even if your throwaway is different, everyone still fits in the same core archetype determined by your top 2 values. So you still definitely fit in these 10, and the job will be the right recommendation. The throwaway just determines the nuance. So if you want to know the exact variant and what jobs are for you, then you can get a hard copy of the file of every single of the 30 different combinations broken down in my shop. The link is up there and it's also in the description. It'll set out the 30, which gives you the exact variation of what combination you are, exactly what nuance you need to keep an eye out for when you're job hunting. So we're going to look at each of the 10 archetypes in turn, right? Starting with, if your top values are pay and autonomy, then your archetype is the independent earner. So the independent earner is basically you care about making money, but also on your own terms, right? So like you're not really looking to like climb someone else's ladder. That's so lame. You're not really looking to climb someone else's ladder. Like if a job has too many rules or like meetings or vague team building exercises, you're gone. You're exiting. You're out the door. You're gone. You're out of there, okay? You're the type of person who really cares about having control over how you work and like when you work and like who you work with. And the idea of having a manager looking and checking out, or like, oh, what are you doing? What are you like at every second? If that sounds worse to you than like figuring it out yourself, but also doing it 10 times slower, if you're like, I'd rather just leave me alone, I'll figure it out. If that's the kind of setup that you like, where like you make money but with autonomy, this archetype works the best in jobs where you can directly tie your own output to your income, and also where no one's stopping you from experimenting in the role itself. So some of the jobs that might be right for you if you're an independent earner, you should look into jobs in freelance creative work, which include design, video, writing, branding. You can also look at consulting or contract-based work. So these are roles where you solve a problem and you get paid and then you move on, right? You could look into small business ownership, especially if it's like niche or like flexible or like an online business, right? Another thing you could actually look into is like startup or like solo founder path, where freedom comes with risk, right? But like the upside is yours. That's the actual appeal of it. So you're like the type of personality that would actually enjoy being an entrepreneur or like being self-employed. Basically, you're the actual target demographic of all of those people online that preach about like everyone should be their own boss, like everyone wants to be self-employed. That is not true, okay? Not everyone is well suited for that path or like would actually like it, but you actually you are actually the target because you do actually want to make your path. You want to make money, but also you're kind of a control freak. You kind of want to do it your own way. Control matters more than certainty for you. Therefore, actually, startup, entrepreneurship, solo founder, that's actually for you. By the way, if you're an independent earner, an escape artist, a principled builder, or a prestigious idealist, then you're going to want to listen to this next book. So these 4 archetypes, right? These are all profiles of people who actually want more from their work, right? More freedom, more meaning, more flexibility, and let's be real, probably more money. Whether you're craving independence to build your own thing, creativity to actually enjoy what you do, or stability in knowing that you're like in a future-proof field, tech careers often check those boxes. And you're probably sitting there right now being like, okay, that's cool, Crystal. Yeah, tech careers. What the how the hell am I supposed to even start, okay? That's where Triple 10 comes in. Triple 10 is a platform that helps you shift into a tech career even if you have 0 experience in tech. Their boot camps are flexible, beginner friendly, and unlike most programs, they don't actually just teach you skills and pat you on the back and wish you lucky. They match you with real projects with real companies, so by the time you graduate, you have actual experience under your belt. 82% of their graduates get hired within 6 months, and if you don't, you get 100% of your money back. It's literally like anti-college, like all of the learning of college, but minus any of the risk of being a barista till you're 30 years old, okay? And it's not just coding. Triple 10 has paths in data, product analytics, and QA. So if you're someone that wants to pivot into something flexible, creative, value aligned, or just financially logical, then click the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code on screen for a free career consultation. You can get started for as little as $200 a month. Thank you, Triple 10, for sponsoring this video. Okay, the next combination is if your top values are autonomy and variety, then you're the archetype of the escape artist. So you're basically someone that wants freedom in how you work as well as something new to work on each time. You basically hate repetition and you don't really give a about structure either. You basically want to be left alone to do whatever task it is, and you want constant variety on exactly what it is that you're doing. You might have been someone when you're younger that you were told you were like restless, or you're always jumping between projects or new things or reinventing some old thing that you were into but you're not into now. But actually now you're doing this other thing. You forgot about that. You're just all over the place, okay? You're probably someone that thinks that you have too many interests and not enough time, and also probably not enough patience to see your interests through. You're the type of person, if you're an escape artist, you would do the best in roles where creativity, independence, and like constantly moving or like constant variety is all central to the role, right? So you should be looking into jobs like creative direction, brand development, content strategy, product design, especially in fast-paced teams. You can also look into UX research, innovation roles, or like anything experimental or cross-functional, which gives you that variety that you really want. You can also look into entrepreneurial paths where you set your own terms and you can like change direction when needed or when you get inevitably bored. Okay, moving on. If your top values are autonomy and alignment, then you're the archetype of the principled builder. So if you're a principled builder, you're someone that really cares about doing meaningful work, but also the meaningful work needs to be like on your terms, on your watch, on your time, Basically, you want to be in a role which like aligns with like, it needs to align with my soul, right? It needs to align with my mission, or like you want to be the person like makes the mission, right? So you want to make sure that it aligns with what you feel morally is right, or like I want to feel like my role makes an impact, blah, blah, blah. So it's really important for you to be able to work and think independently, but also be in a job where like the driving force is something that actually reflects your actual values, right? So some roles or like some career paths that you can do that where like it matches your top values, that could look like founding or joining an early stage startup with an actual clear purpose that you actually align with. Activism, adjacent strategy, or like long-term systems change work is good for you. You can also look into independent consulting in areas like DEI, sustainability, or ethical design. Okay, moving on. If your top values are pay and alignment, then you're the archetype of the prestigious idealist. So you're the type of person that's like, I want my work to actually mean something, but also the other part of you is like, I need to be well respected, well compensated, but also you're the type of person that like once a year you'd like to be featured in an article about how impactful you are, or like how you're really saving the world, or like society, or polar bears, or the children, one of those. Basically, you're the type of person that simultaneously refuses to sell your soul for a paycheck, but also you're not about to martyr yourself for a cause that pays in like free exposure and like clout and tote bags, right? You want to be paid in money. Dollar bills, I want to be paid in money, but also I want to be clapped on my back for being a good person because of my charitable job, my bleeding beautiful heart, right? So some careers that might tend to match this blend, which you could consider, include climate tech or like other sustainability startups, social impact PR or public facing roles. Some B Corps are really good, or like mission-led companies that actually practice what they fucking preach. You're gonna have to do some proper digging and research if you're this archetype. Okay, moving to the next archetype. If your top values are pay and stability, then you're a steady climber. So if you're a steady climber, you're someone that wants to be financially comfortable, but also you want like stability, right? Your job needs to have structure. So promotions are good. Promotions make sense to you. Titles mean something. Basically, any job where like you don't have to explain to your parents what you do for a living. Just think like your Asian parents would be down for this. Like they'd be cool with this job. You're probably the kind of person who likes having a plan, and you'd rather be very good at like one thing or like one system rather than be constantly bouncing between industries and roles. Like the idea of bouncing between different roles, if that makes you anxious, you might be a steady climber. You also don't want to have to be jumping ship every 6 months, so you basically want a track to like move up on, right? So like one that's clearly respected, very transparently, it's obvious like what the next step is, and it pays you more the longer you stay in the path. So if this is your archetype, some jobs that you might look into include government roles, so that can include the civil service or public sector admin. This one might be like a little bureaucratic, but like to be honest, if you're this archetype, it's probably still a solid choice for you. You could also look into corporate management, especially in larger companies. You could also be a really good fit for finance because the pay scales are structured and growth is really predictable. Or you can go into like Big Four consulting or just consulting. Accounting is really good because they give you name brand credibility and also a clear ladder for moving up the pay scale. Basically, at the end of the day, you want to work somewhere that rewards consistency, and these are some of the jobs that you could look into. By the way, if your top values are pay and stability, you might also be interested in this other video I made, which talks about some pretty underrated jobs which pay you pretty well and are pretty stable. So you can check that video out when you're done with this one. Okay, moving on. If your top values are pay and variety, then you're what I call an adaptive hustler. I hate that name, but I couldn't think of a better one, which is what we're gonna go with, okay? You're an adaptive God, I hate the word hustler. You're an adaptive hustler. Basically, you're someone who likes it when like no 2 work days look the same, right? You're someone that really needs stimulation, okay? So it might be like new challenges, new clients, etc. You're probably really good at jumping into unfamiliar situations, or like you like jumping into unfamiliar situations. You like just figuring it out. You're like, I'll just learn on the job, okay? It's fine. Learning shit on the job, that's your cup of tea, right? You like doing that shit. You might be really good at multitasking or thinking outside the box. If you identify as someone that kind of just like, oh, I do like a little bit of everything, you're probably an adaptive hustler. So I basically just described the variety part of this archetype, right? But because the other value is, hey, you also want to be well paid for this, okay? Which is fair. That makes sense. So jobs that fit this profile tend to be really high output, really fast paced, and they're often project based because that gives you the maximum variety and also lets you have the most opportunities to be well compensated for your work. So you might want to look into jobs in brand strategy or creative agency work because that is where every client is different, every job is different. You could look into event planning or production where no day is repeatable. There go clients of all shapes and sizes. Media, marketing, content roles that reward probably monetarily speed and reinvention, which are both things that you're good at. Or you can look into gig or contract-based work, especially if you're juggling multiple streams of income at once, so you can have more control over how your income is coming in on a day-to-day. Okay, moving on. If your top values are autonomy and stability, then you're a steady individualist. So if you're a steady individualist, you're basically someone that wants long-term security, but also you don't want to be micromanaged or have someone fully breathing down your neck 24/7. You're probably someone that prefers work that's consistent, or like you kind of know what's going on every day, right? But also you kind of want to say in how things are done personally. Most likely you're described or you identify as someone that's quite thoughtful, organized, and also independent. So you're the kind of person that really likes having control over your environment, but maybe you don't really need all the constant variety to stay engaged. You kind of just like doing the same thing over and over, but you just you want to be able to do it your way. So if you're a steady individualist, you want to look for a job that has clear structure and job security, but also it has enough room for you to manage your own time or like your own workspace, right? So some of the jobs that might be good for this include operations, project management, or like compliance roles, especially in well-established companies because they give you that stability. You can also look into academic research coordination where you're managing like long-term plans, but it's not fully chaotic. Admin or systems work, especially like tech adjacent admin or systems, because there's both predictability and like also process ownership or like what's going on every day. Or you can get into specialist consulting where you manage your own caseload inside of a broader team. Okay, moving on. If your top values are stability and variety, then you're what I call a structured explorer. Here, you're basically the type of person that needs a job to be mentally stimulating with like a bunch of like different tasks, right? A variety of different tasks, but also you don't necessarily want to be tossed to the wolves. Like you don't really want to be thrown into full chaos. You're the type of person who likes having new things to work on and like different problems to solve, different people to deal with, but like all within a system that's pretty established and won't just suddenly collapse on you for no reason. You're probably someone that's both very easily bored, but also very anxious when things get unpredictable. I'm sure you're a great person to be in a relationship with. I'm just kidding. Not really. Basically, you want both stimulation, but also a reliable foundation. I'm sure you're a great person to be in a relationship with. I'm just kidding. I just made that joke. No, I'm kidding. Not really. So jobs that tend to fit this balance of like stimulation and stability, these might include product management because your work is project based, but it's also like grounded in roadmap or like a longer term route of like what's going on. You might also consider teaching, especially in environments where there's like strong institutional support, which gives you that stability, and also teaching. Consider teaching small kids. I'm sure there's enough chaos and variety for that on the day-to-day. You could also consider healthcare roles, especially with rotation, so you're not always doing the same thing all the time, but also there's structure, right? To be honest, healthcare in general is probably a good one for you because there's enough chaos, but you're also not at risk of like being let go all the time. Some good ones: radiology, speech therapy, even nursing. They're all good options to consider. You could also consider policy, urban planning, or like non-profit operations where the mission itself evolves, but the systems or like what you're doing, your task stays pretty similar on the day-to-day. Okay, moving on. If your top values are stability and alignment, then you're a purposeful planner. So here, you're someone that wants to feel secure in your work, but also you want to feel good about your work, right? So like, you want to feel like your time is going into something that matters, but also I want to feel like I'm not going to be let go all the time, okay? You're basically someone that's not really looking to chase huge risks, huge reward. Like, you're not a big high risk, high reward. That's not you. You're not looking to like radically change or like invent something, like invent the next great thing. It's not really you. What you're looking for is basically you want want a job that has consistency, it has values that you're aligned with, and it has like a clear sense of purpose and therefore gives you a clear sense of purpose in your own life, okay? You're probably someone that's pretty thoughtful, you're pretty long-term oriented, and you're pretty idealistic, or like quietly idealistic. Maybe you don't say it out loud. So if you're this type of person, you basically want to look for a work environment where the mission of the job or like the mission of the organization is clear. The day-to-day is dependable, so you're not like doing something completely crazy, completely different every day. And also your contributions actually help people or like actively are improving a system or like a structure that you believe in. So some roles that might match your personality type might include education administration, policy work, or nonprofit strategy. You could also look into clinical roles in like public health, therapy, or community programs. Program management is good. And you can also look into compliance, ethics, or like governance roles, which are all, I'll be honest, in my opinion, they're like pretty slow, but it's like slow and meaningful work, which is exactly your archetype. Okay, moving on. If your top values are variety and alignment, then you're the archetype of the spontaneous romantic. So if you're a spontaneous romantic, what you want from your work is meaning, but also variety. So you want to feel emotionally connected to what you're doing, but at the same time, you constantly want to be challenged or creatively stretched, right? So you're the type of person that moans and groans about monotony and routine, and you really like ideas, you really like visuals, languages, people, not always people, maybe not people, sometimes people. You want to feel like what you're doing is meaningful and also that you're doing it creatively. So this is the type of archetype that thrives in jobs which are like really expressive, really dynamic. They let you express yourself in a certain way. So if you're a spontaneous romantic, some jobs that might be good for you, most creative roles are good. Writing, filmmaking, storytelling. You might be interested in something to do with like identity or culture. That might be something that's inherent in your work. Art direction or experience design, especially with something that has like a purpose behind the aesthetics of what you do. Or you might go into like multidisciplinary work because that gives you enough variety, and which might combine like art, social commentary, and community. So that wraps up the last of the 10 archetypes in this video. I hope this was helpful. I hope you found this helpful. As I said before, these are based on psychological studies conducted on what makes people actually satisfied in their jobs, right? So I wanted to make this video so it's like a more practical angle into like how you should pick your job, as opposed to like wishy-washy vague advice about following your passion. Like, no, follow my passion, okay, and then what, right? You can check out this playlist I made, which is a compilation of all of my career advice videos, or you can just check out this video, which YouTube thinks you should watch next.